Author Donna Jodhan presents Marta's Moon Dance. Marta had been a beautiful and elegant dancer. She had been well respected by her dancing colleagues and had perfected her very own moon dance. However, someone came along and had accused her of stealing their idea. Marta's unique moon dance had brought her millions of dollars, and her audience was worldwide. Now someone wanted a piece of her fame and much of her fortune, and would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. Then there were others who also wanted to get their hands on her fortune for their own reasons. This all ended in tragedy for Marta.
Hello, it's Detective DJ, and welcome to my episode called Marta's Moon Dance. I'm very happy to have you here again with us one more time. Hope you're having a great day, and I hope that you are remembering to smile, because if you smile at the world, it will smile back at you. Hope your week is also going great, and hope you've been out and about doing the things you love to do. I know that by now you would have heard the description to this particular episode, and I'm promising you lots of drama, excitement, turns, and twists for this episode. Again, here is our team. Dr. Shay Harrington, resident psychologist, Dr. Ryan Martini, who is our crime scene specialist, Chip Sanderson, who is our resident investigator and right-hand man, Dr. Nicholas Gasquet, our resident pathologist, and of course Alex Kirchhoff, who is our young computer guru and sleuth. So, without much ado, let's dive right into this episode called Marta's Moon Dance. And of course, I'm going to start by telling you a bit about what's going on moments before this crime takes place. It is a beautiful moonlit night in the early fall. The moon is a full one for sure, and the trees have already begun to turn color. Some are of a rich burnt orange color, while others are of a deep yellow. Pretty, pretty, pretty. The hillside is peaceful, except for the light footsteps of a deer as it moves very cautiously among the bushes. A young couple stands arm in arm, watching the reflection of the moon over the quiet waters of a country lake. While in a semi-darkened study, a professor yawns and stretches as he prepares to correct some of his class assignments. The scene of the crime is something like this, according to Dr. Ryan Martini. It is a darn shame that such an unfortunate accident had to spoil this picture-perfect early fall evening. The cops have been called to a picturesque part of the countryside, where the woods are just right for those strollers who enjoy walks in the moonlight. Off in the distance is the lake, with a few boats anchored offshore. And on an incline overlooking the crime scene stands a pretty little country house. The house is a mix of a bit of the old and a bit of the new, and its grounds are immaculately kept. There is a trail running parallel to the lake. and several strollers and their dogs are presently standing in a very tight little group. The focus of their attention is strained on a grassy spot not too far from the lake. The cops have arrived and they have asked everyone to stand back, and they have been ordered not to move. The strollers and their dogs, as they are told, stand there rooted to the ground, and they are waiting. Some of the dogs have to be kept still by their owners. The strollers have parted for the cops to make their way, and they do so by stepping off the trail and walking gingerly on the grass towards the focus of their attention. Now everyone stands and waits with bated breath. Flashlights are being shone downwards, and after a few minutes, the cops straighten up. They announce to the tense and waiting crowd that someone is dead. They tell the crowd that it is a young lady, a lady with long blonde hair, light eyes, and slim build. Now their investigation must begin. Some of the bystanders have started to drift away shortly after the cops have made their first statement. But a little later on, those left behind are shocked to learn that world-renowned ballerina Marta Hammond is dead. This is the identity of the body that was discovered by some of the strollers. The cops have no difficulty recognizing her pale features in the light of a low and full-hanging moon. TV cameras are rushing to the scene to get in on the action, and still pictures are being beamed around the world. Many watch horrified on their TVs. World-renowned ballerina Marta Hammond has apparently been killed. Pictures of her half-clad body are being shown to the world. Naturally, Dr. Shea Harrington has her theories, and she never ever disappoints in sharing these theories with the rest of our team. And according to Dr. Shea, she is saying that the perfect location for this crime was one that was in a remote area. This is where the killer felt the perfect location for their crime should take place. And the perfect occasion for this crime to have taken place was when Marta would be alone. And her reason for being there, because Marta usually loved to walk on moonlit nights. She was a moonlight walker. This is all according to Dr. Shea Harrington. According to Chip, he has identified some motives or possible motives for the death of Marta Hammond. Possible motive of greed, possible motive of betrayal, or a possible motive of jealousy. It never ever fails to surprise anyone that these three types of motives are somewhat or somehow always involved in a crime. Now, according to Dr. Shea, she has developed a profile or possible profile for the suspect. The suspect, according to her, the suspect knew exactly why they wanted Marta dead. They had planned their crime very carefully, chose their location and time, and knew that they would be able to get away before being discovered. Let's go to the investigation. And according to Chip, and in his report, he says the following. Marta Hammond had made it very big to the limelights of the dancing world. From a very early age, Marta had shown promise, and her parents had spared nothing to help her get to the top. Marta Hammond had had a twin brother named Matt, but he was also known as Matty, and the two had been very close as kids. However, a year ago, Matty had died of cancer, and Marta had been heartbroken. She had promised her brother Matty, on his deathbed, that she would continue to dance, if not for her, then for him and his memory. And unknown to anyone else but the two of them, she and Matty had worked tirelessly to create a special dance for her after he had been diagnosed with cancer. Matty had choreographed for Marta, as he himself had been a ballet dancer. Marta and Matty had shared their deepest secrets with each other, and Matty had taken one of Marta's deepest ones to his grave. Not even her parents had known about this particular secret, and Marta had vowed to herself never to share it with anyone else. Now that secret had been taken to the grave by her beloved twin brother Matty. It did not take very long for Marta to unveil her moon dance to the world, right after Matty's death, and her audiences had immediately loved it. Now she was raking in millions for her moon dance, and she had decided to dedicate it all to the memory of her brother, Matty. She had started a school for ballet dancers, which she had named the Matty Hammond School of Ballet, and her school had been offering some things very special to some very special students. And this was something that most other schools had not been offering. Marta had decided to offer a ballet program for blind kids, and the world had heartily endorsed her initiative. She was being hailed as an innovator. Marta had met someone shortly after Matty had been diagnosed with cancer, and she was now engaged to be married. Her brother Matty, however, had never really been fond of Marta's fiancé, and had told her so before he had passed on. The two had had long discussions about Marta's fiancé, and at the end, Matty had begged her to be careful as he lay dying. For Matty's sake, Marta had waited until after he had passed on to get engaged to her boyfriend. Matty had warned Marta that there were certain persons close to her who would try to harm her, but he had never told her who. He had also warned his sister that there were also certain persons who were taking advantage of her kindness and soft heart, and that they would take advantage of her vulnerability after he was gone. There was someone very close to Marta who honestly felt that most of Marta's millions should be theirs, as they had felt that Marta and Matty had stolen their idea for a moon dance, had made changes to it, and then had produced it as their own. This person honestly felt that they should have been the beneficiary of all of this fame, and that someone else should have been dancing the moon dance instead of Marta. They had even gone as far as to have tried to have altered Matty's choreography, his videos and his diagrams, in order to try and show that they had been the ones to have created the moon dance. However, many fellow ballet dancers had refused to believe this, accusing this person of theft, greed, and jealousy. This person had had a plan to bring down Marta. There was someone else who had deliberately gotten close to Marta in order to try and steal from her. They had taken advantage of Marta's somewhat shyness and inwardness in order to do so, and had been offering her their friendship and consolation, especially so after Matty's death. And Marta had gravitated towards this. She had gravitated towards this person unsuspectingly. Marta had come to depend on them very heavily. And soon enough, she had been lending them money to help them pay off their debts. Because this person had gotten in over their heads through a very luxurious lifestyle. This person had become extremely jealous of Marta's friendships with others, and had been trying to isolate Marta from her friends. They had wanted her all for themselves, and they had been prepared to stop at nothing to get what they wanted. There was a third person who had deliberately befriended Marta in order to further their own cause. They too had played on her shyness and inwardness and vulnerability after Matty's death in order to gain her confidences. They had only gotten close to Marta in order to benefit financially. But in actuality, they had despised young Marta, and they despised her greatly. They also coveted her fame and fortune, and they too had decided to take whatever they could from an unsuspecting Marta. They had become involved in a web of betrayal against Marta. Although Matty had never told Marta of his true suspicions, he had carefully noted them down in his diary, and he had also documented certain important facts and had stored them away on a USB drive. He had left that drive with his lawyer for safekeeping. Marta's secret inadvertently slipped out one evening, and she had realized it too late. Now she had prayed that nothing would happen, but something did happen. Chip has identified the following suspects: Vladimir Kaczynski, Marta's coach; Brad Golden, Marta's boyfriend; and Kevin Marceau, Marta's hairstylist. According to Dr. Nicholas Gasquet, Marta's death was caused by the following. Marta Hammond had been strangled to death. A length of cord had been used to commit the crime. Marta's body had been dragged from the spot where she had been killed and had been left on a grassy spot off the trail. Marta Hammond had been raped before she was strangled, and her body had been found about an hour or so after she had been killed. According to Dr. Nicholas, he's saying that this is how it could have been done. The killer had probably waited for Marta to leave her house and had watched as she had started out on her moonlight stroll. He knew exactly which route she would be taking. He probably stayed ahead of her as she strolled, and had probably chosen the exact spot where he would attack and kill her, knowing full well how remote this spot was at night. Now, I want to go back and do a little summary so that you stay on track and stay with us here, okay? You know the crime scene. You know that this body has been discovered by a group of strollers who are strolling along with their dog. You know that the body has been discovered lying on a grassy spot. You know that the area is pretty remote. It's a moonlit night. So, of course, a lot of people are out strolling around with their dogs. It's a very picturesque area. You got the lake, the country lake, and you got people just enjoying themselves on a very quiet night. You know the location, of course. You know the occasion, this being that Marta was out for her regular moonlight stroll, and she did not live too far from where this crime took place. The profile of the suspect knew exactly why they wanted Marta dead. They had planned their crime very carefully, had chosen their location and time, and knew that they would be able to get away before being discovered. You know about the suspects: Vladimir Kaczynski, Marta's coach; Brad Golden, who was Marta's boyfriend; and Kevin Marceau, who was Marta's hairstylist. Now it's time to go to the important questions. According to Alex, he has the following questions for you to consider. And here they are. Which of the suspects was being accused of theft, greed, and jealousy? Which of the suspects had wanted Marta all for themselves? Not too many questions this time, but it's enough to get you going. Which of the suspects could have become involved in a web of betrayal? What secret could Maddie have taken to his grave? Could this have been important evidence? Could any of the suspects have known about this, the secret? If so, could they have used it to further their own causes? Could this secret have destroyed Marta's career in any way? Why did Maddie document and stow away this secret for safekeeping? Secrets, 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 always secrets. But we must press on. I want now to just go back to the description of this murder mystery so that you stay on track. Okay? Marta had been a beautiful and elegant dancer. She had been well respected by her dancing colleagues and had perfected her very own moon dance. However, someone had come along and had accused her of stealing their idea. Marta's unique moon dance had brought her millions of dollars, and her audience was a worldwide audience. Now someone had wanted a part of her fame and much of her fortune, and would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. Then there were also others who had wanted to get their hands on her fortune and claim it as their own. This is terrible. But they had their own reasons, and this had all ended in tragedy for Marta. Now, we've discussed the crime scene before. You know what that crime scene is. You know about the suspects: Vladimir Kaczynski, Marta's coach; Brad Golden, Marta's boyfriend; and Kevin Marceau, Marta's hairstylist. Let's go over the important questions one more time. Which of the suspects was being accused of theft, greed, and jealousy? Which of the suspects had wanted Marta all for themselves? And which of the suspects had become involved in a web of betrayal? What secret could Matty have taken to his grave? Could this have been important evidence? Could any of the suspects have known about this secret? If so, could they have used it to further their own causes? Could the secret potentially have destroyed Marta's career in any way? And why did Matty document and stow this secret away for safekeeping? Lots of questions for you to consider. But now we must go on to more gathering of evidence from Dr. Ryan Martini. DNA from Marta's rape was taken and matched to the rapist. Evidence was gathered from files from Matt's USB drive along with his diary. Witness statements were taken from Marta's friends and parents. And statements were also taken from the 3 identified suspects. Their financial statements were also examined, and in addition, close friends of the 3 suspects were also questioned. Statements from Marta's housekeeper were also taken. But now, it's time for Chip to tell you more about the suspects, and let's start by looking at Vladimir Kaczynski. He was Marta's coach, and he had been Marta's coach for several years. He had recognized her potential very early in the game. At first, he had been very happy to be a part of her fame and fortune, but over the years he had begun to change and had begun to demand more and more of her fame and fortune. He had wanted to be paid more for his services, and he had wanted her to give him more recognition. He had resented Matty greatly and was extremely angry that Marta had hired Matty to be her choreographer. Then, when the moon dance had made Marta even more famous, he had decided that he had needed to somehow stop her. In addition, he felt that it should have been his wife Natalia who should have been dancing the moon dance, as Natalia herself was a ballet dancer, and Vladimir truly felt that she was better than Marta. Brad Golden, he was Marta's boyfriend. Brad really did not love Marta, but he had only hooked up with her in order to get his hands on her money. He knew that Matty was not fond of him, and he too had also despised Matty. Brad had had plans for a life with someone else after he had taken what he had wanted to take from Marta. Brad knew that Matty had suspected this and had decided to wait until Matty had passed on before asking an unsuspecting Marta to marry him. Unknown to Marta, Brad had been involved with another lady for a while now, and Matty had known this. She was a well-known Italian fashion model, and he had planned to marry her. Now we go to Kevin Marceau, who was Marta's hairstylist. At first, Kevin had played on Marta's sympathies and generosity to get her to lend him money to support his luxurious lifestyle. This had been his earliest intentions, to get Marta to support him, and in turn he would become her confidant and best friend. Kevin was a superb hairstylist, and Marta had known this. Marta had become to depend more on Kevin after Maddie's death, and Kevin had fallen in love with Marta. He had become extremely jealous and possessive of Marta, and had done his best to isolate her from her friends. His jealousy and possessiveness had now turned to obsession. According to Alex, he says this: through the eyes of the killer had been aware of all of Marta's movements and knew what she was most likely going to be doing. The arrest. It was a very late fall day when the cops came for the suspect. The air was crisp, and most of the trees in the area had already shed a great portion of their leaves. The kids were already in full practice for their Christmas plays, and Christmas was just around the corner. The cops had taken great care with this arrest because of the media attention that had been given to this case, and because of whom Marta had been, a very famous ballerina. The cops had been very discreet in their arrest, taking the suspect as they had left a small bookstore and quickly bundling him into an unmarked police car. Well, can you guess who was arrested? Was it Vladimir Kaczynski, Marta's coach? The one who felt that Marta should not have gained fame for her moon dance? Or was it Brad Golden, Marta's boyfriend? The one who had despised her and had only wanted to use her for his own gains? Or was it Kevin Marceau, her hairstylist, who had become extremely jealous and obsessive, and who had wanted to isolate her from her family and friends? It's time to go to court, and let's see what happens now. It was a packed courtroom with standing room only. Many of Marta's family and friends from the dancing fraternity, her staff, lots of international media, and many strangers and courtroom goers. You always have courtroom goers wherever you go for a high-profile case. The prosecution proffered the following. The defendant had lay in wait for an unsuspecting Marta on that fateful evening. He had raped and strangled her, and then had walked away without looking back. The defendant's DNA had been found in Marta's system because he had raped her before killing her. The defendant had argued with Marta a few days before killing her. He had told her that he knew about her secret and had threatened to disclose it to the world if she did not meet his demands. Marta had refused, threatening to go to the cops, and this had angered the defendant, and this is why he had raped and killed her. Marta's housekeeper had testified that Marta and the defendant had had a terrible argument days before the killing, and she had testified to the threats that had been made by the defendant, and then Marta's pleas and refusal to give in. When questioned further by the prosecution, the housekeeper had stated that she was certain that it was the defendant who had had the argument with the defendant, because she had known him by his foreign accent. He was not guilty of first-degree murder because the prosecution had not been able to produce the length of cord that had been used to strangle Marta. They further stated that they had left Marta alive after having raped her. They had pleaded guilty to the charge of rape, but denied that they had had an argument with Marta days before her murder. They argued that it was clear that Marta had been killed through strangulation and not through rape. Finally, the defendant's lawyer had asked him to take the stand, and then had asked him to read a short passage containing words that the housekeeper had said that she had heard him say to Marta on the day of the argument. The lawyer had then asked the housekeeper if she was sure that this was the voice that she had heard on the day in question, at which time the housekeeper had become very, very unsure of herself. Well, let's go see what's on the mind of our jury. The jury did not have a problem with a conviction for rape, but the conviction for first-degree murder was troubling. Why were the cops unable to produce the length of cord that was used to kill Marta? Was it someone else who had argued with Marta on the day of the argument? Was there enough evidence presented to convict the defendant of first-degree murder? Well, we sent Chip to mingle and talk to different people outside of the court. And here's what he came back to us with. The overwhelming majority wanted a conviction for rape. But when it came to the charge of first-degree murder, over 85% said no. Rape? Yes. First-degree murder? No. Let's look at the straw poll that Chip developed for us. On the count of rape, overwhelmingly guilty. On the count of first-degree murder, overwhelmingly not. Not guilty. What's going on? The verdict. The verdict was exactly as had been called for by the crowd and the soothsayers outside of the court. Guilty of rape, yes. Guilty of first-degree murder, no. Wow. Identification of the real killer? Vladimir Kaczynski had indeed killed Marta Hammond. And he was the coach and the one who had felt that Marta and Matty had stolen his ideas for the famous moon dance. But it was Kevin Marceau who had raped Marta. Kevin was her hairstylist and the one who had become extremely jealous and obsessive with her. Wrap up? The cops were eventually able to locate the infamous cord and had tested it for prints and DNA. The ballet community had put great pressure on the cops to bring the killer to justice. Vladimir Kaczynski had gone to Marta's home a few days before she had been killed, and the two had had a vicious argument. He had discovered a deep, deep secret about Marta a few days before this, and had gone to her home with the intention of using this information as blackmail. He had stumbled upon this secret by pure luck and accident, and he knew that if this secret were to ever come out, it would probably mean an early end for Marta's famous career. He had discovered that Marta was very slowly going blind because she had accidentally left a report from her ophthalmologist one evening on the desk in her dressing room. And Vladimir had seen it and had read it. The voice that Marta's housekeeper had heard arguing with Marta was that of Vladimir and not Kevin. Both Vladimir and Kevin had pronounced foreign accents. Vladimir's was Russian and Kevin's was French, but to Marta's housekeeper, they had probably both sounded the same. On that fateful night, Vladimir had gone to her home and had hidden and waited for her to go out for her customary moonlight stroll, as everyone close to her, including Vladimir, had known that this is what she loved to do, and usually did on a moonlight night. Wherever she was, and wherever she happened to be. And if she had not gone out, Vladimir had formulated a backup plan. Marta had come out for her stroll, but Kevin Marceau was with her. But Vladimir had followed them at a distance. Marta and Kevin had headed for the trail, and Vladimir had watched as they had stopped for a bit on the trail, and soon they had seemed to be in an animated conversation. Then, to Vladimir's surprise, he had watched as Kevin had suddenly grabbed Marta and had begun to attack her. Marta had begun to scream, but there was no one around but Vladimir within earshot. Vladimir had watched as Kevin had torn off part of Marta's clothes and then had raped a sobbing Marta. He had then left her on the trail and had run away. At first, Vladimir had wanted to go to Marta, but then he had changed his mind. He approached quietly and had seen the horror in Marta's eyes as he had snaked the cord around her neck and had started to tighten it. She had pleaded with him one last time, but it was too late for Marta. One last tug on the cord by Vladimir, and Marta was dead. Vladimir had then dragged her body off of the trail and onto the grassy spot. Vladimir had killed Marta. That's it for me, folks, for this particular episode, Marta's Moon Dance. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I have enjoyed bringing it to you. I want to wish you a great day, a terrific week, and don't forget to keep on smiling. Take care now, and we'll talk to you again not too long. Bye for now.